Okay, good morning, everybody. Oh, that's adorable. My green screen's all cattywampus. Joining us this morning is our dear friend and future congressman, the Major Richard Ojeda. Thanks for joining me this morning, Richard. The campaign's going great, and we're really proud and excited of and for you. Do you want to, before we get into something that you and I were chit-chatting about before the show started, you want to give everybody an update on how you're doing fundraising, what people can do, your sites and all that kind of stuff? Like, make sure, because we're going to hit this a couple of times while you're here, but I want to do it right away.
Absolutely, absolutely. The campaign is going phenomenal. We are going nonstop. We're putting boots on the ground in every single one of the counties multiple times. People are starting to recognize us. People are getting fired up. We went to the Hands Off rally, and people were actually, I ran into a person that even had an Ojeda Live shirt on.
Look out.
Things are going great. We're raising the money that is needed. We've broke the 400,000 mark. And understand that we know that what the Republicans are going to do at the last minute, they're going to just dump a bunch of money.
Sure.
But we are bringing in the money that is needed to be able to flip this seat from red to blue. And make no mistake about it, you know, I've got a lot of people on my team, and that's what this is about. We're absolutely doing the work. And of course, you know, my opponent is the guy who told all the Republicans no more town halls. He's
Right.
like running the RNCC. So, you know, I mean, he doesn't have a great reputation right now. He calls himself the veterans representative while he sits quiet while Elon Musk and Donald Trump basically gut the VA. So I'm going to absolutely not allow him to be able to say that anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the end of the day, my district is very saturated with veterans, and nobody's going to fight for veterans health care more than a veteran will. And I think that the veterans know that. So I have a really good shot at flipping this seat from red to blue and going to Congress. And I would love to say a couple things here real quick.
Yes.
Things that I want to do. So number one, I would like to create a nationalized pay scale for teachers. I think that's important. I would like to bring back the fairness doctrine and require honesty and integrity in our news media. I want to completely remove the cap on Social Security so the billionaires will have to pay in it with every dime that they make. Let me see. I want to create a 25-year and out retirement for police officers, firefighters, first responders. And I'll tell you why. Because, you know, I've been to combat multiple times. I've seen death. We've participated in it. You know, it is what it is. Let me tell you something. That does not even scratch the surface of what police officers, firefighters, and first responders that run ambulances and things like that see. Every car crash, every type of murder that goes on, every type of house fire.
That's right.
These are people that are carrying bodies out, that are having to remove mangled bodies from wreckage. And let me tell you something. You know, in the military, when we come home now, we have the Veterans Administration that does its best to try to make sure that those of us that struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder get the medicines that we need and get the ability to speak to the right people. Police, fire, and first responders don't really get that. They just have to suck it up. And I think that it's important that we absolutely create a 25-year and out retirement for these people because they deserve it. I mean, these are just some of the things that I really would like to do, and understand people are going to say, how can you afford that? How can we pay for that? And I'm going to tell you, I am absolutely placing the billionaires in my crosshairs. I want to absolutely tax them, and I don't care what it costs to tax the billionaires so that we can create a nationalized pay scale for teachers that will keep teachers happy no matter where they are in the United States of America, with a pay that is something to be proud of. We should not allow a brand new teacher with a bachelor's degree to start teaching and pay them less than what we pay a brand new second lieutenant in the United States Army. In 1997, when I raised my hand and I become a second lieutenant, I immediately started making $56,000 a year. We've got teachers with master's degrees that don't make $40,000 a year in this country, and that is a slap in the face. We need a nationalized teacher pay scale where every 5 years it's a pay bump to the next level, and it goes like that 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25, 30. That's what needs to happen.
That's brilliant. I have to say that having a lot of LE in my family, and my mom being a nurse and having worked, over the course of her life in in trauma centers and that kind of stuff. And I mean, the only hospital for, I don't know, maybe 60 miles in the South that had, the ability to even do operations at all. If you're going town to town in Frankfurt, what people go through and what they kind of suffer with and hang on to, we kind of shrug it off. That's extraordinary, and I think that is the kind of thing that if Democrats got on board with ahead of the midterms, could buoy a lot of different Democrats as well. I think that's a great coalition building one. I think there's no way to say no to it. And remember, like police, fire, and EMT. Every day they go to work is the worst day of your life. That's all they do all day, every day. And
they see death.
Right.
They see death, and it's far more than what anybody can even begin to imagine.
Grasp.
And we really don't think about them. I mean, I got it. I love the fact that everybody thinks about, hey, we got to take care of these veterans. We send them away. We send them in harm's way. We break them. We're going to fix them when they come home. But you know what? We need the same thing for our police, fire, first responders. Yeah. That's important. And corrections. I want to also add corrections to that, because let me tell you something. We should not have people in their 60s and 70s in prisons and regional jails, because those people, and I tell people this all the time, I say a police officer will deal with an asshole for 3 hours. Corrections will deal with that asshole for the next 10 to 30 years. Yes. And those people, get into physical altercations almost weekly. And, let me tell you, I've toured a lot of regional jails and prisons, especially in West Virginia when I was a state senator. And I'm going to tell you, you walk into a room where there is 40 bad guys and they have one correctional officer, and it's usually some 22-year-old that's in there standing against the wall, basically just hoping and praying that everything goes well today. Right. And you know what? When they get up in age, when they're in their 50s and 60s, these are not people that should be placed in situations where these people can be preyed on. And that's exactly what those people in those cages want to do. So we can do better. And I have to also say, overturning Citizens United is also something that is absolutely crucial to me. We got to get big money out of politics. I think it was Mexico. It may have been Australia. But they just passed a law that said the max amount that anybody can give, and that's corporations, that's billionaires, is $20,000. Yeah. We've got to absolutely get big money out of politics, because people like Elon Musk and them are going to swoop in and they're going to try to buy every single election that is out there. And when they have unlimited funds, that's what's going to happen. And, I'm going to tell you, I know I'm busting my ass. I am doing everything in my power. And I hate call time, but I'm doing call time. I'm going nonstop. We are literally going absolutely nonstop. And I know for a fact that what's going to happen is a month before the election, they're going to come in here, they're going to dump millions of dollars into my opponent, and then they're going to start talking about transgender kids trying to play sports. And that's their playbook. That's what they got. And we have to be smarter than that. And it is time, because we are now moving towards a dictatorship. We've got a person in the Oval Office that is now talking about basically shipping Americans to foreign gulags. Right. And if people don't get their heads out of their asses, and oh, by the way, the poor Republican, make no mistake about it, you are in the crosshairs. You just don't realize it. Yeah. Trump don't care about you. Nope. And again, there is useful as they're needed to shepherd him into office. But once you've got that vote, and if the idea is you're going to hold on to office by other means, you don't need those folks anymore. And they become useless weight after that point. So my question is, and we were talking about this a little bit before, Marjorie Taylor Greene had this, had people dragged out of her town hall, just, all the authoritarian stuff that they've been, warning us about, the tyrannical government and all that stuff. It perfectly describes everything that they are doing. Let's just start there.
that everything was always a projection, but now it's like absurdly so. One of the things that stood out to me recently is the deadline, excuse me, for Real ID is May 7th. It's coming right up. And I have one already, and everybody I know has gotten one. You know who doesn't like Real ID? Maggots. MAGA does not like Real ID. There are people all over right-wing media spreading bullshit that they're going to track you via satellite, and that there's going to be a social credit score like China attached to it. And yes, it's dumb. Yes, it's absurd. But a statistically significant number of those folks are not going to get one because they think it's some sort of like vaccine chip kind of conspiracy. And they won't be able to, not only will they not be able to fly by airplane, they won't be able to enter a federal building or vote. The irony that the whole time we've been asking for, my issue with ID has always been make it free. It shouldn't cost you money to vote. It can't be a poll tax. And the problem with demanding this kind of, an ID from someone is that that's what you get. Well, the new ones, the baseline of it is free, supposedly. It depends on your state, I guess, processing fees, wink, wink. But the enhanced one you can pay for, which is like TSA pre, like it establishes more of who you are. As somebody who's, you deal with this all the time. If you're known, you have your live stream that you're doing, you are running for Congress, you are out there with your political beliefs. I don't have the illusion of privacy ever. And so I don't worry about it. You know what I mean? If everybody's tracking me, I don't worry about Big Brother. I got Little Brother sitting in Starbucks going, "Hey, that's the dude from Lab Rats," right? So it doesn't matter. But there's a big portion of MAGA that's not going to be able to vote in the midterms because their own leadership at some point made them so fucking paranoid that the Democrats were going to put them in FEMA camps that they are missing that is exactly the way Trump talks. Taking American citizens, snatching them off the street by guys wearing masks with no badges. You don't see any identification. Like, I'm not getting into a fucking van if a bunch of randos come up. Even if you say, I need to see a badge. And if you don't have one, I'm going to assume I'm being kidnapped. This is ridiculous, as most people would. And at this point, that is one of the areas, the blind spots. I think they have set things in motion that they have no grasp of that are just going to collide. And a month ago, everybody was like, the Dems are going to have to go woodshed and we'll never find our way back. And what a difference time will make. But it looks like the Republicans have just lit a bunch of wicks and they're all burning right at the same time.
Yeah, and understand that Donald Trump does not like those poor Republicans.
Nope.
I mean, they were more than happy to take your votes. They took the Latinos for Trump vote. They took the blacks for Trump vote. They took the Hispanics for Trump, the Cubans for Trump. They took their votes, and they appreciated those votes. But now that they are in, they don't care about you.
Right.
And once again, Donald Trump is now literally saying that he is more than willing to have people snatched off the streets and given no due process and sent, out of the country to these gulags in places like El Salvador. And let me tell you something. This should bother everybody.
Yeah.
The fact that they made a mistake, and here's the thing. Stephen Miller and those assholes are all trying to act like this Mr. Garcia was MS-13. He wasn't MS-13. He absolutely came to this country to get away from the cartels where he grew up at, and he ended up marrying an American woman. They had children. He is a union worker. He is a good union worker, respected by his peers.
Yep.
And he got snatched up accidentally and sent to El Salvador. So Donald Trump should have said, this was a mistake, let's bring him back. But because Donald Trump refuses to ever accept any responsibility for anything that he does, they are now allowing him to sit there and rot. And now people like Stephen Smith or Miller and them are literally lying by saying because they're on the news now saying, well, you don't realize Mr. Garcia was a member of MS-13 and all this. No, he wasn't.
No.
They are absolutely lying. And let me tell you something. I have the fear that Mr. Garcia is gone. He's gone. I hate to say it, but he could be dead. And that's one of the reasons why they're not bringing him back. Because I look at this and say, if Donald Trump thought that he could be hailed as the hero who brought back Garcia, he would do that. But because Mr. Garcia may be gone, and I'm not talking about, we don't know which one of these gulags we put him in. I think that he's probably gone. And that right there is on the Donald Trump's administration.
Right.
And they need to be held accountable for this. You cannot just snatch people off the streets and give them no due process. Just because you think that they're not Americans does not mean that they do not deserve to have due process.
Agreed. I mean, the Supreme Court has said as much, and that's the entire point. And they're like, what are we going to do? Fly him back, try him, and then deport him again? Yeah, if you prove cause, absolutely. But it's the precedent that we're all talking about. Because if the government has the ability to snatch somebody up, even mistakenly, and ship them to a prison overseas, Abu Ghraib, Guantanamo, something like that, and never bring them back, I don't know why any maggot alleged why the Freedom Caucus isn't on fire over this because of the slippery slope. We are, every time there's a fucking school shooting, we hear slippery slope that you can't limit the stockpiling of ammo. You can't track people under the age of 18 or 25 that aren't in the military with how many guns they have and the like. You can't even register fucking guns. I mean, if you really look at it, they don't want them registered because they don't want the government to know what they have when they knock on the door. That's really what that's about. They want to shoot. You talk about first responders having to deal with shit all the time. I've mentioned this once before, but my cousin had to do basically a raid, a warranted. They had a warrant, and they had to bust into this guy's house because he was selling illegal guns to gang members and militias and all kinds of shit. And as they're banging the door, and they've got that big battering ram, he was hiding behind the door, and as soon as it hit the door, he fired into the officer, basically going up through his torso. That guy's never going to walk again. His internal organs were effectively shredded, and my cousin was, like 4 feet away, and that was Wednesday, right? No,
Yeah.
And so these guys. And this is who you're fighting for. It's one thing to go, people should be able to have as many guns as they want because the government knows, hey, if we mess with that guy, he'll be able to fire back. Well, what difference is, as Biden said, you don't have a drone or an F-16, so simmer down. And secondarily, what's the difference if we know you have those guns versus if we don't? They're going to assume the worst if we don't. And if we know exactly what you have, they know the level of precaution to take, and they can base their response on that logically.
Yeah, but here's the thing too, and this is something. There is a video. You've seen it. I've seen it. A lot of people have seen it. That we've got to get and start sharing with these Trump supporters.
Yes,
and that's the video of Pam Bondi with Donald Trump talking about. This is going to be a time when we take the guns.
Yeah.
Make no mistake about it. The Republicans have always ran on the Democrats are going to take away your guns. They don't care about the Second Amendment. But who is caught on tape saying this is how
at a cabinet meeting? At a cabinet meeting.
At a cabinet meeting.
He literally said they're spitballing. And I want everybody to know, too, that there was a little window in that. Most of this stuff that the Trump, administration and the organization does is they just, you froze for a second. Can you still hear me there? Are we good? I want to make sure I get him because there you are. Okay, good. Sorry, it froze for a split second. I didn't want to lose you. That we got a real window into what Trump talks like when he's with his cabinet, because he was doing this thing and it was like part of his macho posturing bullshit. And they're talking about, this was right after a shooting. And he goes, how about take the guns and then do due process later? He literally said it. It was off the top of his head. And it's his real belief. Like he just doesn't get it or give a shit. And I guarantee he still thinks that about anybody except Don and Eric. Like that,
Absolutely.
that rich people and people in government have a kiss my ass card that allows them to tell law enforcement to fuck off. But everybody else, if they could throw a net over your house and pick it up with a fucking helicopter and drop you in Guantanamo or the fucking ocean at some point, he'd just shrug it off. But he literally said, how about this? How about with this? We take the guns and we do due process later. You should do that order. And all the Republicans at the table were like, well, no, Mr. President, you have to. Da, da, da. And those are the people that were the sensible ones, if you'll recall. Last time, it was supposedly people were going to keep them in line. Those fuckers are gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's saying the same shit.
Himself. Yeah, Donald Trump has surrounded himself with people that will agree with everything that he wants.
Right.
But at the end of the day, Fox News is never going to show that video. That's why it's important that we get that video and we share it with Republicans and let them know that, look, this is the guy. Here he is talking about taking the guns. Because make no mistake about it, the moment that Donald Trump feels like the people that elected him to office are starting to wake up and realize that it was all a friggin' scam all along, and they get scared that they're potentially going to lose, their hold on this country, they will try to take the guns. So people need to understand that. And once again, the Republicans have always, it's like every time the Republicans blame somebody, here's the thing. Every time the Republicans blame the Democrats, it's almost 99.9% of the time where it's actually them that are the ones that are doing it. The Republicans are screaming about transgender people molesting children in bathrooms. And since Donald Trump took office, let's just take the score from there. At least 60 daggone youth pastors and daggone members of Congress and political people across the country, Republicans, have been caught absolutely as pedophiles and all this other stuff. They tell you that the Democrats are the ones that are doing it, but they're the ones that are getting caught. Show me one daggone time when a transgender person went into a daggone bathroom at Walmart and molested a child. You're not going to find it.
Nope.
But make no mistake about it. We got teachers that get caught. We got youth pastors that get caught. We got all these daggone people out there doing this garbage. And once again, they want to point at their fingers at the Democrats. Well, we've got to absolutely get in this fight.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, think about the parallels between saying that trans people are a danger to children and sexual assault and stuff. So we're worried about them getting into bathrooms and places like that. That fear that one lane of fear that they've been pushing. And then think about we need to get God back in schools and the track record of youth pastors. So let me get this right. Like if anybody has evidence that somebody is trying to get a group that has more than their fair share of underage sexual assault in their background, it's that group. It's the Republicans doing it. And Donald Trump, we know he has no friends. His whole life has been transactional. But the two longest running friendships Donald Trump had, the people he respected and the advice of and spent the most time with, Jeffrey Epstein and Roy fucking Cohn.
Yeah.
If a Democrat, because they'll make up a lot of stuff about like Clinton flying on Epstein's plane when Epstein was weaseling his way in as a Dem donor and trying to spread money around like a lot of lobbyist guys do, that kind of thing. They'll make a lot of it. And if anything ever comes of it, screw them. I don't care. Like anybody who was involved in that stuff, I have no problem jettisoning them. That is part of my ethics and my ideals. But we would need to see the flight logs of Trump's plane to know how many times he flew with Epstein because we knew they flew together on both. And Roy Cohn, and I said this with Tara on Monday, but Roy, if you ever watch Angels in America, it's a famous quote that Roy Cohn, like on his deathbed, he's dying of AIDS, and they said, does it bother you that people will know that Roy Cohn is gay? And Roy Cohn says, in third person, talking about himself, Roy Cohn isn't a gay man. Roy Cohn is a straight man who fucks boys. And that was Donald Trump's mentor. If any Democrat was like, yeah, who's the two biggest, most important people in their lives over literally 25-year, almost carried on. You could argue that as soon as Cohen died, Epstein was there to, like, gold statue a bag of sand his way into Trump's life. 50 years of that arc, and the only two consistent relationships as friends that he has, Roy Cohn and Jeffrey Epstein. If that was a Democrat, it would have been like they would have sewn him to the candidate running like he was like Anthony Weiner or all these other people, which they talk about. Again, tangential people who need to go and pound sand or go to jail that show up along the path in all these circles of power, and you punt them. And that's what everybody did. Swalwell and the Chinese spy that tried to work her way into his organization. Soon as the FBI said, hey, guess what? She's working for the Chinese. She was gone. They dropped all contact that very day, and she went back to China, has never been to the United States again. In fact, but they will not stop hammering that, right? They will, like, that is a constant run. They brought it up. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert have both brought it up in Congress, which is against the rules of comity in the committees to bring up that kind of stuff and assert bad character, in terms of having an affair and all this stuff. They have no evidence of it, but it never stopped them. They'll put it in the congressional fucking record. Right. But if you point out, I think maybe it's our fault. Maybe we haven't pointed this out, that why is Donald Trump's two biggest relationships in his entire life as friends, Roy Cohn and Jeffrey Epstein. That's it. I can't think of anybody else that's been his friend other than real estate guys he allegedly knows, who most of them, if you corner him, go, oh, he's a fucking idiot. But, he owns part of this loan I have.
Donald Trump considers friends people who give him money. But there's a documentary about Roy Cohn, and I tell you, I forget the name of the documentary. Let me tell you something. If you really want to know what a shit stain that guy is, watch that documentary, because he is absolute pure poison, horrible human being. And he's kind of like, to me, it's like Roger Stone. In terms of just being a bad person. Steve Bannon, bad people. Don't give a shit about nobody. Act like they're the victims when they are literally just absolute, bulls in a china shop.
The documentary is Where's My Roy Cohn? And you can also watch The Apprentice, the movie The Apprentice. And I had an opportunity at one point, and I missed it, to have one of the producers and writers of the show went back in the fall come on, and their dance card got filled up really quick because they were sending it out to everybody. And I think in retrospect, I think it's important, I should probably have them, reach out and see if they want to come on while it's streaming and all that stuff, so that we could talk to them again. But from those two angles, the Where's My Roy Cohn documentary and The Apprentice, you really do get a picture of not only Donald Trump's affection for the man himself, which, again, Roy Cohn was a manipulator. It's like all child predators are manipulators. So you could argue that Trump himself, with his dough-headed fucking, seeking for, and his daddy issues, was as much, I would say a victim, but a target of Roy Cohn's manipulation because of his money and all that kind of stuff, the skills that he had. Citizen Cohn, that's another one too, he's such an easy mark for these kind of people, Donald Trump. And it's still true to this day. You can see it in how easily led he is. And that kind of brings us to the financial system that Trump has put us in right now. You didn't talk about like MAGA, like people that voted for him, working class people, who many of them have these like secondary jobs, that they have like side hustles and all this kind of stuff. And it entails coming up with a product or working in one of these industries that has a product, and, whether it's Amway or something like that, that they supplement their income with, and all that shit's made in China. And the markup on it is just going to explode their business, and they're just done. And right now they've got 3 months of stock backed up. When that runs out, they're done. I've seen person after person being interviewed. I'm sure you've seen them too, where they have loans they took out to expand their business because they thought Donald Trump was going to be small business friendly and finally the American worker, and America's going to America first and all this kind of stuff. He doesn't care. And you think you're going to get a fucking bailout like the farmers did, like the Brazilian rancher dudes who own farmland in the United States did, who aren't even Americans during his first term? You got another thing coming.
Let me tell you, that's the thing, and especially the farmers that aren't the richest of the rich.
Right.
Let me tell you something. What's going to happen is they're going to end up having to sell their farms for pennies on the dollar, and those billionaires are just waiting for the opportunity to swoop in and buy their farms out from under him. And then they're
Right.
going to do the same thing for people's property. They're
Yeah,
going to
their
swoop in,
houses.
they're going to try to they're going to buy as much as they can, and they're going to get it for pennies on the dollar. And Donald Trump is creating an environment where the working class is shrinking. It's going to become the working poor. And what's going to happen is the average American in this country is going to just have to stick their nose to the grind and work nonstop. The 40-hour work week will probably disappear. It's already disappeared in certain circles. Coal miners don't work 40-hour weeks.
No.
Coal miners work 12-hour days, 6 days a week. But make no mistake about it, it's going to get to the point where nobody's going to have the ability to look up and see the horrific things that they're, going to be done against them, because they're going to be too busy just trying to make ends meet, put food on the table for their children, pay their friggin' mortgages and their car payments. And that's what these people want. That's what the billionaire class wants, because they know that if the people wake up and realize that it's the people that are getting stabbed in the back by the billionaire class. And oh, by the way, there's only like 825 friggin' billionaires. Mm-hmm. But yet we've got members of Congress, the Republicans, are shitting all over every single person in this country just so they can give more money to the top friggin' billionaire class. And that right there is unacceptable. And when the people, especially these poorly educated Trump supporters, when they finally wake up and realize this, the daggone billionaire class and Donald Trump and them know that they're going to be in trouble. And that is what they don't want to see. They don't want people. They want people to be too busy with your nose to the grind so that you don't have the ability to start to gather with other people and start to talk about what's really happening behind the scenes.
Right. Well, Impulse Studios in our thing says people don't understand what Trump is doing. He's using El Salvador as a concentration camp, plain and simple. He won't get away with it here yet. I agree with that, but I will also say that people have been saying Dems need to do more. Dems ain't doing nothing. Whatever. And whoops, I beg your pardon. Chris Van Hollen, the senator from Maryland, just landed a couple of minutes ago in El Salvador, and he is going to check on Mr. Garcia in that prison. And that, for all the Democrats aren't doing enough, Democrats aren't fighting, Democrats aren't doing anything, Chris Van Hollen is flying to El Salvador to check on a constituent. That pure and simple, that's democracy. That's democratic representation. That's what we're all for.
Yeah, yesterday we saw posts of Riley Moore from West Virginia, senator. By the way, I think it's Shelley Moore Capito's son. They're both senators from West Virginia.
Right.
And he goes and takes pictures, selfies in front of all the people in the cages, and it's absolute sickening. Let me tell you something. This is one of those moments in time where we need to understand and we need to think about that. What's the old saying? When they came for the Jews, I said nothing because I wasn't a Jewish person.
Right.
And then they come from this group, they come for this group, they come to this group. I'm not a part of that. But then all of a sudden they come for me and there's nobody willing to stand up for me because everybody is gone. And we are on that path. Donald Trump and them are doing everything in their power to get rid of people that are light brown to dark brown. And make no mistake about it, it's only a matter of time before they transition to people who are opposing us. And that's me. And that's you.
Yeah, that's what homegrown means. That's what homegrown means. Homegrown, one of the big blow-ups that the right did consistently was that anytime the FBI would bring up the concern about white supremacist gangs or racial supremacy gangs, because again, you got the Black Hebrew Israelites that, seize people's property and chase people around with guns. They're the ones who shot those 2 Jews in Brooklyn on the street. And it all has to do with racial politics. And that's domestic terrorism, homegrown domestic terrorism. Whenever Chris Wray would sit down and say, our biggest violent threat is domestic white supremacist gangs. So by volume and by damage, these are the guys you have to worry about. And if you don't believe me, look at Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City killed more people than anything short of 9/11. And it's a lot harder to protect against an Oklahoma City type attack than it is to stop the next 9/11. There are things that were put in place with commercial airlines that would have stopped that happening, right? Never happen again. But renting a Ryder truck and filling it with a fertilizer bomb is still a possibility. There's just too many moving parts. They can be on top of it, but so they've really got to be vigilant about this. And there's like 6 different fucking states where these things get dreamed up, especially Michigan, for fuck's sake, over and over and over again. So they're quelling these things. The FBI's after these all the time. Okay. That's homegrown domestic terrorism. When Chris Wray brought that up, they were like, he's going to attack Americans. He's going to attack. This is being used you're going to attack their political opponents. They're going to they're going to throw us all in FEMA camps, right? That was the response to him just saying the reality. Now that like Trump and literally says homegrown, as in citizens, that if he considers somebody a quote homegrown terrorist, he can not only snatch them without due process off the street by masked, dudes showing no identification, but he wants to be able to ship them to Guantanamo or El Salvador or, again, a helicopter flying over deep water. Because how will you know, right? Before it's too late. And he doesn't, it's funny, but that whole due process guns thing, Donald Trump is beyond a lot of things fucking stupid. He's a dumb man. He's an ignorant piece of shit. And his own people, you can see him panic when they go, but this would lead to this and this could lead to this. And if we're no longer in power, we're fucked, right? Like, it's only by the fact that Joe Biden is a decent man that he didn't take Trump up on I could make SEAL Team 6 attack my political opponent because I viewed them as a threat to the country, right? That was like, Trump is only alive because Biden was like, that's fucking ridiculous. I would never do something like that. But short of that, if it had been another Republican who was worried that Trump was going to primary him, for example, I'm not so sure he'd be that safe.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. But also, that also kind of lets us know how bad some people really are.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, this is how it is. Now we have all these Republicans that are saying, we didn't vote for this. Yes, you did.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
You voted so that friggin' Democrats, you voted so that liberals would get absolutely done wrong. You voted for those people to be snatched up. You voted for those people to lose their jobs. And you wasn't smart enough to realize that here's the thing. The laziness in this administration, the laziness.
Yeah.
Donald Trump literally said, we're going to take these pardons on a case-by-case basis. And the laziness of the Donald Trump administration was that the moment that he won and took office, he just let everybody out because it takes too much time to go through the system and make sure that people that did bad things. The laziness. And once again, you voted for this. You just didn't vote for your farm to be taken. You just didn't vote for your job to be taken. And let me tell you something. Veterans, 30% of the people that work at the Veterans Administration are actually veterans themselves. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump have fired veterans. And I'm going to tell you, that's the kind of stuff that we have going on right now. And, these they don't care about us. All they care about is their own survival.
Right.
And look, and we're watching things. Donald Trump with his crypto coin bullshit. I mean, that is nothing more than all right, if you want any favors from the Oval Office, well, it's going to come down to how many of these coins that you buy.
Right.
You want to buy $200 million worth of stuff? By all means, you get a face-to-face meeting with Donald Trump. We are watching Donald Trump literally friggin' money launder and do whatever the hell he wants. And right now, Donald Trump thinks he can do what he wants and get away with it. Because why? Because the people that should be checking Donald Trump are part of the people that Donald Trump put in position. And
or,
that is unacceptable. Pete Hegseth is whitewashing our military. He is firing female, women, general officers, people of color. They're firing these people.
yeah,
They're getting rid of the leadership that is of color and that is woman. And it's
yeah.
blatantly obvious, but they don't give a shit.
Right.
They don't.
Well, and again, to your point about they absolutely did vote for this. Nobody can. This is what they ran on. This is what they said. Like there was no, well, I like this went too far. Like, no, did you listen to what the fuck he said during the campaign? He said, like, the number of times he said tariff is the most beautiful word and tariff, and then and I think this is the package. This is the package about Donald Trump that they need to know. That on the one hand, he's always had this big sales pitch. I feel like when he's talking about big and beautiful, we're going to have one big, beautiful bill and all this kind of stuff. We are all understanding what it is like to be flim-flammed in a real estate deal by Donald Trump. Like all the suckers that bought into his casino, that funded his fucking steaks and vodka and water and airlines and football, they all lost their shirt. If they got in business with him on that shit, they lost everything. And that, because it doesn't work out. On the one hand, he's got these fascist control power dreams, and at the same time, he desperately needs to be loved so badly that he runs as like Santa Claus the fascist. And you just can't. Like that falls apart. It's just materially impossible. It is doomed to fail. And we know that when he fails, he only really has two responses. One is pretend he didn't fail and keep acting like it was a win. I meant to do that. Or it's actually better. The fake news won't tell you how great it is. Or he blames somebody else. This person came highly recommended. So to everybody in the fucking cabinet that thinks that they're going to, from Lutnick to Hegseth to fucking Pam Bondi, that thinks they're showing fealty to this guy who loves America and loves them like a fucking, I don't know, televangelist daddy figure that they love. He's going to turn on you. He's going to dump you. And on two things. It's going to be awful, and you're going to feel like you've been betrayed. But I got news for you. He's right. He's a fuckhead who hired a bunch of other fuckheads so that when shit hits the fan, he could go, it wasn't my fault. It was that asshole over there. And that's what's going to happen to these people. And when it does, tough shit, told you so. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, here's the thing too. Like the military, I'm fortunate because I retired. And when I retired, the military had a retirement system that was 20 years and out. You get 50% of your base pay for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Those days no longer exist. Now, everybody who joins the military, you start a 401k. Donald Trump is tanking 401ks.
Right.
And every day, people are losing more and more money. People are going to start realizing that Donald Trump has destroyed your retirement. I can only begin to imagine a person right now that's in their 40s and 50s that's planning on retiring, and then all of a sudden their 401k is tanked, and they're going to realize, I can't retire now. I tell people this all the time. If you go to like local, when I was 16, when you and I were 16 years old, McDonald's, Wendy's, places like that was filled with 16-year-olds who were working at those places so they could have a little extra money on the weekends to hang out with their friends and stuff like that. Go into a Wendy's and McDonald's today. You're going to find people that are in their 50s and 60s working at McDonald's. And the reason why is because they didn't get a good retirement, so they don't get to retire. And let me tell you something, that's going to become the reality for a lot of these people in this country that are Trump supporters. And when you realize that you're never going to get to retire because a orange buffoon in Washington, D.C. basically done away with your retirement capabilities, you did this to yourself. Once again, going back to we didn't vote for this. Yes, you did. Right. Yes, you did. You just voted for it to happen to Democrats, liberals. So
that's right.
Get ready. It's coming for you too.
Well, and I think that was always the plan all along, because, that's why Trump loves the poorly educated, because they're easy to, including himself. He's very self-aggrandizing. His stupidity is a feature, not a bug. And by the way, I want to remind everybody, every night, Ojeda Live, 8 o'clock Eastern, Is that your
8:30.
8:30? Okay, sorry. It has it listed on your pages 8 now. Just letting you know. Mild adaptation on there. I thought you had moved it. So yeah.
Is that on the ojedafornc.com?
Nope, it's on Ojeda Live on your YouTube channel, so it might not have just been updated or something. It's cool though. Either way, 8:30. So and go to RichardOjedaforNC.com.
Yep.
And help out if you can. And of course, subscribe to Ojeda Live. That also helps. Like, because driving those numbers up over time, because we gotta, the midterms are going to be here before we know it. And right now, time seems like it's passing so slowly with all the shit that's happening, just the constant white knuckling. There is going to be white knuckle fatigue in MAGA. There is going to be a growing sense of capability on the Democratic side as well. They'll find the weaknesses in their argument and their approach with voters, and they'll be able to respond to it. So, like you're seeing. Chris Van Allen going down there today to El Salvador. Cory Booker taking the floor for 25 hours plus, breaking Strom Thurmond's record while Trump is president, which is the moral significance of that is so extraordinary. And you're going to see that continue to ratchet up. But what we're going to have to do is brick this. We're going to have to, brick by brick, build this thing going forward all the time. So. When you can subscribe to a channel, when you can, support a channel, but more if you can spread the message of what, we're talking about, that clip that you're talking about, like, we need to take the guns first. I'll make a short with that video and post it. But I think we all have a responsibility on our side to push that out there. The other thing too is, and Kristi Noem did a video that looked like a cable access, the more you know video about getting real ID. Which again, the distrust that MAGA has for this thing is extraordinary and hilarious. But they had to make a video. They had to have Kristi Noem do it. And why is that? Because maggots are the ones not doing it. Kristi Noem's not going to convince me to do anything or you to do anything. You know what I mean? We're gonna do what's good for the country and our fellow citizens because that's how you're supposed to be, not because she told me to. And so that ad wasn't for us. That ad was it wasn't for anybody in my audience or your audience. That ad was for maggots who are not going to get their real ID because they think some asshole on the Peanut Butter Dickhead podcast or something has made them think they're going to use it to track us. They're going to, it's got a chip in it and all that kind of shit. And I want everybody to vote. I want us all to participate because I think when people drop out and stop participating, that's when violence happens. That when people stop feeling heard and participating, even if they can just lose fair and square, once you stop doing that, then it gets sketchy. Then they start planning for, well, if I'm going to have power in this world, what's it going to look like? And maggots have a bad track record in that area for political violence. And entering federal buildings without showing proper identification, if I do say so my damn self. So that's there are a bunch of people, I would say 10% of Trump's electorate that in the midterms isn't going to be able to vote. They're not going to have a current ID, and the rules in red states are going to be even more stringent than they are in blue states. Who's that going to impact? Is it going to impact Democratic voters? No, because Dems are going to have a real ID. We're going to have all our ducks in a row. We're going to drive people to the polls. We're going to have souls to the polls. We're going to, organize outreach. We're going to do call centers and stuff like you're doing because we're going to have to. Yeah.
Well, we also have to understand, too, the recent bill that was just passed that's basically trying to disenfranchise 69 million women who took the last name of their husband.
Right.
And, this is something that has to be fought out. And hopefully we don't have to require every woman to change their name back, so they can vote. I mean, once again, this is the Republican Party. The Republican Party sits and tells you that the Democrats are trying to take away your rights. And when they get in power, that's what they do. We catch them on a hot mic talking about deporting citizens without due process. We catch them talking about taking the guns. We catch them trying to take away people's ability to vote. This is who the Republican Party is. And we really need all of you poor Republicans, oxy freaking moron.
Right.
We need for you people to wake up and realize that you are also in the crosshairs. You just don't think that Donald Trump is going to hurt you. And the truth is, Donald Trump don't give two shits about you. Walk on Mar-a-Lago and ask if you could play around the golf and watch them escort your ass off the property.
Right, but not even Mar-a-Lago. They could use as an excuse that he lives there, even though it's a rental property. Dude lives in the fucking attic of his event space, like Howard fucking Hughes pissing in mason jars. But try it on Doral, any of the other ones like that. You're not welcome. Okay, on top of that, and I have a question for you, because I will see, not in Trump, because I don't think he has the ability to think two moves ahead. If he once did. Again, allegedly, if he was a young man who was great at business at some point, that was still the height of failure. He lost more money in real estate than any person in U.S. history on the same day that that Art of the Deal came out. So, it was always a farce. On top of that, I will say, if you'll recall, in Pennsylvania, they were curing ballots in Philadelphia and other places, people who would send in their ballots to, in the 2020 election. And the people that, if your signature was off or the date was off, they would call you. They would cure the ballots. They would say, hey, is this really you? Come on down and vote again, because we can't read it. And if you want your vote to count, you got to come in and cure it. And people would do that. Lots of people came down, and it wasn't like they didn't discover, oh my God, there's a nest of illegals filling out forms. Every one of these people went, oh yeah, I voted. Yeah, can I come down and vote again? I'll show my ID. I'll sign in right there. All of them fucking did it. So if you'll recall, there was one lawsuit that Rudy Giuliani brought in Pennsylvania, and it was on behalf of two maggots that had voted by mail, and the commissioner in that area who's responsible for accepting or rejecting mail-in ballots was just basically throwing out all the mail-in ballots they could, assuming that because it's 2020, it's all Democrats. So if they lost some Republicans in there, statistically, it was this much. So who gives a fuck, right? I think the issue with even their distrust of their own wives voting last time or whatever, and their kind of trad wife bullshit, that they're not concerned that women who've changed their name will be able to vote. They don't think they should be able to vote anyways. And if they lose some Republican women, it doesn't fucking matter, because the goal isn't about whether or not they can lose or gain a block of women. They tend to think women favor things like SNAP and Head Start, God forbid, and education and preparation for, disaster relief and that kind of stuff, like thinking ahead, but they don't care, because if you listen to the kind of Paula Whites of the world, unless you're a televangelist, women shouldn't be working. Women shouldn't be in charge of anything. And
they want you barefoot and pregnant.
Right.
They want you barefoot and pregnant.
So I don't think they care if the women get the real ID once they've taken their name, because it eliminates them.
And for all those people out there talking about Donald Trump playing 4D chess, he can't spell checkers.
Right.
And let me tell you, case in point, let's look at this. Allison Riggs in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. She won a Supreme Court seat 5 months ago.
Yep.
And the Republicans are refusing to allow her to basically, to say that she won that election.
Right.
And right now what they're doing is they're trying to throw out 5,500 ballots.
Yeah.
And do you know whose those ballots belong to?
Military.
Those are daggone military people overseas. So once again, the Republicans in North Carolina trying to act like they care about the veterans. No, you don't. You're sitting quiet while the VA is dismantled, and now you're sitting quiet while service members are having their voices silenced because you don't want to give up a seat that you lost.
Right.
And that's what's going on. And let me tell you something. Everybody out there, look into the Allison Riggs.
Yeah, Justice Allison Riggs. Right.
It's cost over $6 million to fight these Republicans, and they're hoping that the Democrats go broke. Folks, let me tell you something. If you can support the North Carolina Democratic Party, if you can do so, please do. Let me tell you something. It's not just my campaign. It's not just other people running. let me tell you something. If you have the ability to support a campaign, please do so.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you something. The reason why the Republicans are screwing over everybody, they're going after Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP benefits, welfare benefits. They're going after the people's benefits, all so that they can take that money that they think they're saving so they can give it to the top 825 billionaires. Let me tell you something. They don't give two shits about nobody, because the truth is, Republicans don't win their elections over small dollar donations, because the corporations and the billionaires create super PACs and flood the daggone Republicans with all kinds of money that they use to win their races. That's why the Republicans care more about the billionaires than they will ever care about the people, even
Right.
if you consider yourself a poor Republican.
Right. I completely agree. I will say, I'm going to see if I can put this up on screen so people can see what we're talking about. Hold on. Let me move this over here so you can see this better. Okay. This is Allison Riggs, who's running for office, or what she won. She flat out won. And
there's been 3 recounts, and she's won all 3 recounts.
Yep, every single time. And what they are trying to do is eliminate. And let me tell you something. You want to talk about identification, like the required to vote. What more ID do you have than someone who is serving in the military on a secure military base in a foreign country? Like, everyone around is not from the United States, right? And you have very strict rules about who can live on the base and where they can mail their ballots from. That literally they come through the military chain. Like, it is, and so the fact is, they just don't want to give these guys their vote. So if they will take the vote from the military, understand, they don't give a rat's ass about cheating maggots if maggots decide to go with the wrong person. Right.
And they run on their love of the veteran.
Right.
And then they do everything in their power to kill our voices. That's why I'm really excited, because I'm going to tell you right now, my opponent, Richard Hudson, who is the one who told everybody no more town halls, that guy tells everybody that he's the veterans representative. Bullshit. Yeah. Nobody's going to fight for health care more than a veteran, because I'm part of that system. And I'm not going to let that guy. He's never picked up a rifle and manned a post. He's never went to Dover and accepted remains. I'm not going to allow him to run around here and call himself the veterans representative. I will absolutely run circles around him when it comes to taking care of veterans. And I'm going to make sure that every voter in North Carolina's 9th congressional district knows that. And I'm telling you, I'm done with these jackaloons. It's about damn time for us to send them packing.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And I think that we're not going to I think they're going to be surprised. I think they're going to be very surprised at the turn in the electorate. I think there are some people around Trump that can smell it and see that it's not too good. I would say Marco Rubio seems to be in that camp, where you could just tell, like, he's sitting there in these meetings going, we're going to get fucked. We're going to get fucked. Like, we're fucking up. That's fucking up, guys. And then, Chucklehead Nutlick and all these other guys are like, Pam Bondi fucking can't say Mr. President when she's talking to Trump. She says president. She just says like it's his first fucking name, president. She just says president. And it's really weird. It has a very and also the Iraq kind of sound to it. But also it sounds like, to me, whenever you see it like a South American dictatorship, it's almost like he asked her to. Like, call me president. Don't call me Mr. President. Call me president. Because El Presidente, whenever they would talk about like these like authoritarian rulers in South America, everybody would refer to them as El Presidente. Like instead of Mr. President, and he's like, it's like, somebody told him it's like saying Mr. Doctor. So call me president. And she's the only one that does. And it is so fucking lame. But you could tell. Well, there's another aspect of this, because I personally believe he puts a woman in charge of something if he wants it to fail. That's his whole shtick. That if he wants something to disappear, fail, or be undermined, he puts a woman in charge of it. He wants the Department of Education gone, put a woman in charge of it. There's a bunch of right-wingers who post 9/11 don't like Homeland Security. Should put a woman in charge of it.
This administration is not qualified to do the job, period.
Right.
And it kills me because like all of them go in lockstep to the UFC events.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, they're just trying to parade around because they're just trying to maintain popularity. And, you know, I want to tell you, you know, the whole Signal Gate, I mean, every single person that was a participant in that right there should go to prison. Prison. Yeah. Do you honestly think that Tulsi Gabbard did not know that that was wrong?
Right.
I mean, she's held a top secret security clearance before.
Right.
But once again, they don't give a shit. They're in power and they're like, we don't care. We can do what the hell we want, when the hell we want. And it's about damn time we check these people. We have to absolutely beat them. And then a lot of them need to be held accountable.
Agreed. One of the interesting things is I think they operate on an idea that it's not about what they know. They've had the security clearances before. They've gone through these. They've had it drilled into their heads as a congressperson, as a senator, as holding any other kind of position in government before that. You've been told. You've been run through this. You've had your like everybody has an HR meeting at work. You've gone through this multiple times, and they tell you it's a crime. This is a crime. You will be a participant in a crime. They run this through. So the idea is the Republicans don't run on what they know. They run on what their constituents know. And what their constituents know is Signal is secret, and therefore, what's the big deal? And forget all the Hillary shit and the parallels to it, and the fact that this was way fucking worse because there was never ever a military attack plan released, or seen anywhere near the timing where, as it was, excuse me, as it was occurring or right after, right? So, the parallels don't do them any justice, but I feel like they prey on the ignorance of their own constituents, and so I think it behooves us to start educating people about the importance of national secrets, the safety of service people, like we were talking about what first responders go through and the importance of like gun registration for the safety of everybody involved, including the police officers who have to serve warrants in neighborhoods, because what if a neighbor doesn't understand that there's a door knock happening on his neighbor? He doesn't know that they're a cell member or a fucking, ISIS sympathizer or something like that. And that guy is like, who are these guys running up the road, and opens fire on them? So they know that this guy's, they can like send him a little letter or, pat something to his door and go, hey, buddy, your neighbor's going to get wrapped up. Don't open fire on us because we know you think this way, but we're here doing this. And that is super. It's important to us to educate the electorate so they know that nobody can plead ignorance going forward. All these people are pretending they didn't know. They fucking knew.
We have to do that. We have to educate. But here's the thing. We got to stop. If a Republican sees the light, we cannot literally crucify that person.
Right.
You have to welcome them back to the fold. Right. I was driving to Alamance County a couple weeks ago, and while I was driving, I got a phone call. And I'm going to tell you that this was a person that I've known for most of my life. And we have become good friends because of travel. I travel all the time. I love going to Europe. I love going all over the world. So we would always communicate back and forth because she likes to travel too. Good person, good friend.
Yeah. And
then all of a sudden, right before the election, I started seeing her posting things like, he's going to make America great again. And I thought to myself, I cannot believe this. So what I did was I blocked her. I blocked her not because I hated her. I blocked her because I did not want to watch somebody that I consider to be a friend go down that path where I'm thinking to myself, how much information is out there that shows you he don't give a shit about nobody. Right. But I blocked her. Well, then all of a sudden, when I'm driving to Alamance County for an event, my phone rings and I answered it, and it's her. And she says, you were right. He's an idiot. And let me tell you something. Instead of me saying, I told you so, I said, welcome back to reality.
Mm-hmm.
Because let me tell you something, those people that are independents, those on the fence, those Republicans that are closer to the middle, they're waking up every single day. And let me tell you something, Donald Trump's not going to get their votes, and these Republicans are not going to get their votes anymore. We had a Where is Richard Hudson town hall in Moore County, North Carolina.
Right.
And I got up and I said something, and it ended up making it on my soundbite, made it on Rachel Maddow, and
Yeah.
the last word with Lawrence O'Donnell. But before that ended, I was standing at the doors in the back, independents and Republicans, and they said, we're tired of this shit, and we like what you say, and we're going to support you. Let me tell you something. I'll take every single independent vote out there. I'll take every Republican that is waking up. I'll be more than happy to take their votes and welcome you all back to reality, because that's important. I have to go because I got to get on call time.
Yep, absolutely. Great. I appreciate that. Philip Ittner's waiting in the wings. Richard Ojeda for NC.com. And of course, Ojeda Live every night at 8:30 Eastern Time. I wish you all the luck. And again, anything I or my audience can do to help you out, we will absolutely be there. You let us know.
Hey, look, anytime I have the ability, I'm more than happy to be on your show, man. That's a fact. I enjoy it. I feel like I get an education every time I dial in. So I appreciate you, brother. You stay in this fight.
Absolutely. Not going anywhere. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. There he goes. Waiting in the wings is our dear friend, Philip Ittner. Hold on. Let me make sure that I have the right screen to make sure he has... Where are we in the window? I think it's on here. Yeah, there he is. I'm bringing him in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Ittner joining us from Kyiv. Obviously, lots to talk about on a bunch of fronts. Phil, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Yeah. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you great.
All right. Yeah, lots to talk about. We haven't spoken since obviously Sunday.
Yeah.
And the attack on Sumy.
Yeah.
Which probably will go down in the chapters of the history of the war.
Yeah.
Striking against a community that is basically just gathering for a religious event,
Right.
and they get killed. They come under attack, and I think the last number I've seen was 34 killed, and somewhere up in the 140 range wounded. Deeply cynical.
Mm-hmm.
What we used to call in Iraq a double tap, which is to say that they hit the city, and the people who came to provide assistance, as Fred Rogers said, always look for the people who are helping, the helpers.
Mm-hmm.
The helpers came out and tried to provide medical aid and control the situation in Sumy, and they got as planned. They were hit, minutes after the first attack. Give them enough time to mobilize and send fire trucks and ambulances and things like that to the site. And then they get hit they get hit with a second missile, which, escalated things. Yeah. And, Trump calling it a mistake, which is, that's coldly, clearly calculated. That's not a mistake.
No. Well, and I would also say, like he said, he even brought up like Zelensky started the war again. And sometimes I'm like, I think like you, sometimes I think, okay, he's just, it's just a slip of the tongue, or he's making an excuse. There's an act of making an excuse for Putin all the time. But at this point, you get so lost in like the pronouns. I don't think his own brain can make sense of it. Like it.
No, I think he's in Vladimir Putin's camp.
Yeah.
He thinks like Putin does.
Right.
He's chosen a side, and it's not Ukraine. And the dude is
Hmm.
well. I mean, he's compromised. He
Right.
is clearly compromised by the Russians.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's because he's got some influence, or whether or not it's just that he sees the world the same way that Vladimir Putin does. Either way,
Hmm.
he's on Russia's side.
Yeah.
And I don't think most Americans agree.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I also go, I like it. It becomes increasingly hard. I think one of the reasons why most of us think there's compromise involved is because why else would you? But there's this odd authoritarian bent of Trump, and he does the might makes right shit does appeal to him, in its own base way. So it's like, is he compromised by him? Very possibly. Is it strong enough to control him? Very possibly. But also, he likes that kind of thing. Like Trump believes that's the very definition of power. Like he,
Well, right, and also the mentality of like you standing up to Moscow is a provocation. So
right.
how dare you? How dare you?
Yeah.
You are so stupid to engage in a war in which you don't accept the fact that Moscow is the dominant force makes you responsible.
Hmm.
It's it's
Yeah, he like views
it's twisted.
Zelensky defending his country against Russian attack, sort of on the same wavelength of Caitlin Collins from CNN having the gall to ask him a question. You know what I mean? Like, you do not push
Right.
back.
Yeah. No, he's very much about dominance and power,
Yeah,
and just like Trump, just like Putin is.
yeah. And it's, I mean, we know that Putin's sort of attitude about this stuff comes from a very real sense of like military power, a historical view of empirical Russia, of regaining this land, whereas Trump just has this kind of whoever whispered what that we should have Greenland in his ear last, which and yeah,
Yeah, and whoever's the big boy, if you're the bigger power, then by default of being the bigger power, you have the right to assert that power, and
yeah,
that's kind of how we've always orchestrated international relations and power on the European continent, and it's led to a lot of pain and death.
yeah,
And it's like, no, dude, we're trying to move away from that. That's why we have the European Union. That's why the whole project of the European Union is so important. And Putin doesn't believe in it. And apparently, neither does Trump.
yeah,
And do we really want to share the value systems of Vladimir Putin? Is that really what we want to be? Is
right,
that, all the criticisms he has of Brussels, whether or not it's the EU or NATO or any kind of international alliance where things get messy
yeah,
and it's complicated. Um, but that's preferable to Putin and Trump because power is the ultimate arbitrator.
right,
It's I'm a big country. You're a small country. Because
right,
I'm a big country, I get to tell you what to do
yeah,
because that's how it goes. And and the American project and the EU project are similar in the fact that no, it isn't about strength or power or dominion or sovereignty in terms of me being able to influence you as a smaller state. My sovereignty, because I'm bigger and more powerful, overrules your sovereignty as a country that's smaller,
Right.
has led to a lot of blood. And the European project, uh, as a as a descendant of the American project, is no. It's not like that. It's you have
Yeah. Well,
your space and we have ours.
and
And
I've said for a while that
rolling tanks should not be the one that arbitrates.
no,
What sovereignty is.
and somebody brought up like whether he's doing it intentionally or somehow manifesting some deep-seated psychological flaw is not really relevant. It just is either way. I agree. I think the only reason to look into the what's and the wherefores are how do you bring it to an end, and is there leverage in either of those things? Is there if it's because of some deep-seated thing, is there a point to which that fails and therefore he rejects it and stops, participating in his support for Russia, or if they have compromise on him, it is a permanent state and therefore it is immovable because of his fear of being found out or discovered or what have you. So we've got to be aware of that and we've got to address it as such. So that I think is why I think people are wondering whether Putin has something on Trump or if it's just this sycophantic, imperialistic fever dream that Trump has. Either way, both result in the same problem. But if you're going to find a solution, knowing which one was true or had the most sway would impact how you could end that sway. You could either just get a hold of the compromise and release it. You could, someone could assure him it doesn't matter if it does come out, and even if they released it, his followers would still love him. So who cares, right? That's to be aware of. If it's a deep-seated emotional thing, either he will continue to believe it because he needs this Putin daddy figure in his life, or he will reach a point where the return on the return on investment emotionally or the betrayal of it is so profoundly obvious that it will break the fever and he'll move on to being best friends with Kim Jong-un or Xi Jinping, right? So that's why I think
it can't be denied that in a moment like the Sumi attack, to say it was a mistake and that it was the Ukrainian, if the Ukrainians hadn't started the fight and by that he means resisted Russia, that it all would have been okay, shows us clearly which side of the coin he's on. He supports Vladimir Putin. He supports Moscow, and I don't think most Americans agree with him. I really don't.
Yeah.
I think his cult will do whatever he says.
Yeah.
But I think most Americans recognize the reality of the fact that Ukraine was attacked, Russia is the aggressor, and that Moscow continues to do the things that any right-thinking person will reject. And for Trump to come out and be like, "Oh, it was a mistake," or if you're going to start a war with somebody, Ukraine did not start this war,
right? Yeah.
That you can't Trump, Ukraine has been over backwards to try and find a way to work with Trump, even to the point of saying, like, we're going to give you $50 billion or whatever, $10 billion,
right,
to buy your Patriot missile systems, which will be a great economic boon to you. And then for the Trump administration to turn around and say, nah, it's your fault, sort of thing. The Sumi attack was, if you hadn't had stood up against Russia,
Sumi would never have happened. He's on Russia's side.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
on Putin's
that's why I
side.
think it's deeper than compromat. That's why I think, one of the ideas that he's doing it simply because he's afraid of what Putin has on him. I honestly think
And I think
yeah,
he's been cultivated.
yeah. But and there's definitely a lot of psychological shit, going on there. But I think it appeals to his sense of the illusion of power. He wants to be a tough guy so bad, and he's always felt like he's been at a victim that I feel like he's counting on Russia to like be the big monster behind it, over his shoulder protecting him like a giant bodyguard he brings to a fucking, business meeting or something like that scares everybody into kowtowing to him. So one of the things that I find very peculiar, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is Iran is the big boogeyman right now with the Trump administration. They have no issues whatsoever, whether it's because of their alignment with Bibi Netanyahu or the actual threat that Iran poses in the region with Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis. But they have no problem basically saying, Trump's like, either Iran makes a deal or I'm going to blow them up, essentially. He's like basically threatening them with either nuclear annihilation or a reign of hell of Moabs. And yet, he's negotiating a peace deal with Russia and Ukraine, allegedly, about making this happen. And all the while, Russia is getting Shahed drones from Iran and could not, in many ways, be closer to them than they have been. It is stunning to me. And in this particular instance, let me bring in. Hold on one second. I'll show you this. Beg your pardon. And move your camera in. There you go. Is the Axios has this scoop where basically, like Trump and his team have been meeting with Witkoff about the Iran deal that they're trying to work out, which, by the way, at its root would only work if it was the deal that Obama made. And he's incapable of making that same deal because they don't trust him because he broke the last one. So why the fuck would they? So, that's what we're up against in this situation. And then, this is the other thing. So right after or right before Witkoff met with the, I guess they were doing this like a next door neighbor diplomacy where they're in the room and we're in another room. And somebody walks fucking messages physically back and forth between the two of them. They end up, he meets with the leader of Oman, the Iranian envoy does, and then Putin's basically calling Khomeini and saying, give him this, don't give him that. Like he's manipulating Trump via the Iranians right now, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and also, clearly, as so many have said, Putin doesn't want peace right now.
Right. Sorry. There we go.
Putin doesn't have a desire for peace.
Right.
And he is playing Trump by pretending, like, I'm taking a hard stance. I really, really believe in X, Y, or Z. And yet when Ukraine stands and says there are some things that we will not accept,
right,
they're then the obstruction to peace. Again, Trump is on the side of the Kremlin. He has got a bias against the Zelensky administration. He's got a bias against Ukraine in general. He's on Putin's side.
Yeah,
he is not on Zelensky's side. How many times does he have to say something before we recognize that he is on Putin's side?
Yeah. So one of the things that was brought up is that in Witkoff going back and forth because he did such a bang up job on the ceasefire that collapsed in Israel and between Israel and Gaza. They've been meeting with Zelensky, and Zelensky has made some red lines. And he said, regarding territories, Ukraine is a sovereign state, and all territories belong to the unitary state of Ukraine. Therefore, only the people of Ukraine can speak about the territories of our state. And you know that for us, the red lines are to recognize any temporarily occupied territories as not Ukrainian, but Russian. Therefore, the relevant representatives are discussing issues beyond their competence, meaning that there is 91 boundaries or bust. That there is that we're it's a non-starter to just go because you stole this. It's kind of automatically yours. People who speak Russian and are Russian or whatever can live in Ukraine as Ukrainians if they so choose, and they can celebrate Russian holidays and they can fucking eat all the borscht they want. But it's still Ukraine, and it has been. And there's no reason for that to change because nobody was trying to kill Russian speakers or Russian society or sovereignty. The only issues they ever had were subversive groups of Russians who were in there trying to undermine the country's existence in the first place, which anybody would do. Like if America had, groups of German Americans running around speaking German code, it wouldn't be that they were speaking German that was the problem. It would be how they were targeted at the time. Or
look if the Creole speaking
right.
population of Louisiana suddenly decided that we want to or not even if France started supporting the Creole speaking population of Louisiana and flooding them with money and weapons, would that be acceptable to the rest of America? And also not for nothing, but if 90% of the Creole speaking population of Louisiana were like, no, we're good, but there was this 10% funded by France that wanted to
take back the Louisiana Purchase.
Take back the Louisiana. And we'd be like, oh, well, you got to listen to them. Well, I mean, our neighbors
they speak
to the
French.
north have this, they speak French. So, would that be palatable?
Right.
Would the Spanish speaking populations in Texas and in California, if suddenly there was a massive influx of money from
South America, from Central America,
whatever,
and they're like, we have a lot of Mexican sovereigns and people with very strong ties to their Mexican roots who live in Texas. So I mean, if you really think about it, Texas is already part of which is, by the way, it's like straight out of a fucking Monty Python sketch. Remember when?
No, go ahead. Well, which sketch?
Remember the Hilter sketch where Hitler actually escaped and he was living in in Minehead, in Brixton, and he was like, he goes, he's like speaking in German, and the guy, like obviously Himmler, dressed next guy in like podunk, like British clothes. He says, Mr. Hilter, or he goes, Mr. Hitler, Hilter says that tungsten is part of Minehead already, which is basically the same argument that they're making about Ukraine, or that we would be like, or
it would be one thing if like the entire Spanish speaking population of California were to say, like, we all as a group. But if like 10% of the Spanish speaking population of California said we're unhappy, and we went and said, well, the rest of the 90% of Spanish speaking California, it doesn't matter, but we got this little problem with this 10%, so we're going to give them the land.
I would go even further. I would go even further that if 100% of the Spanish speaking portion of of California said we consider this Mexican territory, Mexico would go, no, it's not. Like, stop starting wars. You know what I mean? Like, Mexico sensibly would go, we're not going to seize fucking California. Like, the Spanish are as much imperial marauders of Central America as the British and the Irish were perceived to be on the North American continent. For fuck's sake. Like, Spanish is not the indigenous language of that area, and half of Russia was owned by the Mongols and the Chinese at one point. So the idea that somebody has this, well, you speak our language, so therefore we own the land that's under your feet, even if you disagree with us, is just like the slippery slope of the collapse of all order after that. I mean, it's just bloody neighbor against neighbor, Hatfield and McCoy. There are no, it's like it's like the Slayer version of Imagine by John Lennon. Like, imagine there's nothing, just not the nihilist, violent version of Imagine. None of it matters. Borders don't mean anything. You don't have any rights. If your country has a constitution and we don't, there's no border. Fuck you. Like, we can come in and just swamp yours. And the irony, and we deal with this with Trump, is that his the concern of why we need borders as a country is because we have a constitutional democracy and we have to protect that from countries outside of that border that might want to subvert it by sending in operatives to undermine it and turn us into something we're not. And Trump's response is, I know, I'll turn us into something we're not before they are able to do it. That'll show them, right?
And not to beleaguer a point, but like the Spanish-speaking population in California, if they suddenly had missiles coming in and landing in San Diego, and massacring 31 people, and then the expectation from Mexico would be, well, now you'll join us, and we were to say, and the international community were to say, well, I mean, that's awful. I mean, you better join them.
Yeah,
it's baffling.
Well, or after 9/11, you're like, if they literally, like, after 9/11, we're like, well, I mean, it's the World Trade Centers. I mean, technically speaking, the world belongs to the Islamists because they blew up the World Trade Centers. And if we want one, we're going to have to, like, give them what they want. I don't know. It's so odd. Like, it all falls apart if you think, again, mile wide and an inch deep. None of these motherfuckers in the White House are thinking anywhere past all this stuff, because they just, it's almost like the politics of hedonism, of just what, like, do what feels good, and it feels macho and strong. Therefore it is, even if it's weak ultimately.
And to have him on Air Force One sitting there and saying it was a mistake when it comes to Moscow, but that Ukraine holds a responsibility because they, expected munition supplies from the West, and they're at fault for provoking the war. How many times does this guy have to say shit like that before we start to recognize, oh, he's on the other side?
Yeah.
Oh, he's with the Kremlin.
Right.
And are we okay with that? Even the obviously there's a percentage of support for Trump that will follow him into the gates of hell. But, like, really, legitimately, most of the country, I don't think, buys into this narrative.
No.
It's
absurd.
You can't look at dead children in Sumi and say it's okay.
Or Bucha, like going back to the beginning of that,
Mariupol,
the entirety of the Donbass. The reality that that Trump is Trump has been pressing this idea for a long time. There were no wars while he was in office. Okay, first of all, yes, there were. The Iraq War raged on. The shit that was happening in the Donbass was happening. There were attacks. There were bombings from Gaza into Israel nonstop, and retaliatory stuff from Israel during that time as an ongoing thing. It might have, in his mind, been a low simmer, but it never stopped. And then Syria, multiple African conflicts broke out during that time. So obviously that's absurd, like, on its face. But it is looking increasingly like not only are there going to be no wars and no new wars during Trump's time, but it's going to be massive wars the entirety of his presidency. There is going to be no material remedy that does not involve an act of strength under Trump because he does not have the negotiating power that he thinks he does on paper, whether it's with Putin or Iran or and certainly, I mean, a man with no religious or spiritual convictions, I don't think can't grasp the depth of the religious convictions of ISIS and ISIL and all those folks. He thinks they're like cockroaches. You turn on the light and they scatter. He does not understand the mentality of that because he doesn't care about anything with the same kind of depth. And again, misguided and dangerous and stupid as it may be on their part, you have to understand it to have any point of outreach or to slow it or to respond to it or to even prepare for what their response might be on a military level. You have to be able to comprehend what they're doing. And by purging the quote DEI from everywhere, he's eliminating all the other voices that don't think exactly like the people that are around him, which is so fucking narrow. They just can't grasp it. They're not capable of understanding it. And so there's no way they're going to end it but by force. Like there's no point where Iran, if he, and by the way, there may have been a moment where he could have gotten Iran to come to the table out of fear or collapse of their industry or that they just want to rejoin, the oil markets and all that kind of stuff openly. And you had a carrot you could offer them. But once he started this tariff war, he said, fuck you to the whole world, which gave them a bunch of allies they could now go to because Trump has told them to fuck off. And when everybody's fucked, nobody's fucked. And so whatever leverage we had financially on Iran, if the rest of the world is pinched as well, this, the low point equals out. And therefore, even if we jump-started this and they had oil to sell and all this kind of stuff, they got nobody to fucking sell it to because he's shut down markets and he's sending the world into recession. So even if they were hoping for an economic bailout from normalcy, he's eliminated the value of that normalcy. So that leverage is just fucking evaporated. The only place you can make money right now is on the black market trading guns, drugs, and humans. Like that is the high point. That's because that's outside of that circle of finance. So like that's what I mean when they can't comprehend the situation they're in, and we're in for even if like the Iran thing gets punted and we get closer to because somebody's going to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities in the next 3 months. That's what I think. Either it's us or Israel or both, and Israel with our backing. Something along those lines are going to happen, whether it's because Trump needs to wag the dog or because, it's just, he's got a red line and they keep crossing it. And he gave him a deadline. It's fucking 3 weeks away. And Brenda says, no, HAL, Iran isn't dumb. I'm not talking about Iran. I'm talking about the Trump administration and Hegseth and everybody around him who's making these decisions. They're too fucking stupid to contemplate the mentality of the people that they are up against, including the Iranians. And I think he's going to trigger a situation where not only is there not going to be a solution to the Ukraine war this year, or maybe even next year, at a certain point, he's going to give up. He just is.
Yeah.
And
he's going to blame Kiev.
Totally. Absolutely. That the failure is theirs, not his, but it's not going to change anything. And the Europeans aren't going to stop supporting. Like there might have been a point where he had some leverage with the Europeans if we were still on a good trading level with them and we were at war with China, but we're trying to work this thing out and we're building if he was able to build partners in Europe, they might go, okay, we're going to edge back so to give Trump room to negotiate with the Russians and whatever. No, that's gone. The fucking Europeans are as adversarial with Trump right now as anybody, as they rightly should be. And so why would they give him the benefit of the doubt when dealing with Putin and Ukraine? It's fucking dumb. So they're just going to be all in on helping Ukraine, which means that Ukraine's got all the support it needs and a growing military industry while Russia's is collapsing. So, they'll win in spite of Trump, not because of him. But the Europeans aren't going to back down in their tacit support to benefit Trump because fuck him. And he can't wrap his head around that. Right. And
you see his cabinet like Marco and Vance and all the rest of it saying that if America doesn't support Ukraine, then Ukraine is doomed to defeat. Not true. Not
Nope.
true at all.
We already did. Right. We gave them the leg up they needed.
Yeah. There's growing domestic capability. There's growing realization in Europe that they can't rely on Washington, so they're going to have to step up. And you could say that's a good thing, perhaps, because Europe is starting to realize that it has to have capability and capacity of its own. But I still think that we're better together in a transatlantic alliance. Who benefits from a break of that alliance? Russia does.
Right.
He is doing exactly what Vladimir Putin wants him to do. And he's a traitor to the country. He is compromised by the Kremlin.
Yep.
And the sooner we start to get to the point where we realize that look, I put on I get accused of putting on my tinfoil hat when I start really digging into how compromised Trump is.
Right.
Fine. You don't want to go into some of the stuff that there's more than enough reason to believe that Trump is a fellow traveler, compromised, a useful idiot, whatever you want to call him. When it comes to the Kremlin, you cannot now deny that he is preferential to the Russians. I mean, calling Sumi a mistake, and belittling what happened there is clearly him being compromised by the Kremlin.
I agree, but I also think there's like this weird aspect of him, his inability to admit when he's wrong or that he's misguided or whatever, that there's an element where they play into that the Russians have command of him because they know he will always fall into, primarily he will jump to their defense because admitting he's been suckered this whole time is,
he can never admit it,
right? Which is left, which is left over from his Roy Cohn thing: never admit guilt or fault or mistake. And so that's there on top of whatever they may have on him, on top of whatever financial incentive or compromise, whatever that could be, or both. He's still running with this idea that one of these days he's going to, any normal person would wake up to the fact that maybe you're being played, but he can't admit to being played because his ego is so fucking delicate and he's such a weakling. And on top of this, the Sumi thing itself, it's almost like the Putin and the Russians get a joy out of making him embarrass himself, because to throw yourself in front of the bus like that and call Sumi a mistake when you know it wasn't. You have access to more information than we do. And we already know this was an intended attack. No one in Russia is saying it was a mistake. So why would you? You condemn it and one of the reasons why you condemn it, even if it wasn't a mistake, one of the powers that you have as the president of the United States would be to condemn it, and then they go, the pressure builds on them to where they have to say either it won't happen again, or it was a mistake that won't happen again. Right? You use that leverage to ratchet down the violence against civilians, but Trump is incapable of doing that because of his ego. His fucking ego is so delicate that by doing that, he has to admit, Russia's got me by the short and curlies.
Yeah. Well, and it would be obvious. I mean, we used to have this technique of a double tap was something that was used in Baghdad.
Right.
A lot. And we used to condemn it as a principle. that the idea that you hit a spot, you wait, 20 minutes until the first
First
responders
responders,
show
yeah.
up, and then you hit it again
Yep.
purposefully to get at those first responders was not only condemned because, how dare you kind of do this in Iraq, in Baghdad, that
Right.
we're supporting, but ethically as an idea was condemned. And now suddenly the Russians are doing it, and we get crickets from the from the Trump administration and the state and the Pentagon.
Mhm.
They're just continuously revealing themselves to be on the side of Moscow. It's they did it, and they did it again today in Kherson.
Right.
It's I don't know what it's going to take for the Trump administration to look the other way before
Yeah.
the larger percentage of Americans are starting to say something is wrong here. Again, his faithful are always going to be his faithful, and they'll ride or die until the end.
Right.
But most, proper thinking Americans, I think there's got
Yeah.
to be a place where they're like, are we on the side? Are we the baddies?
Yeah.
To the old Mitchell and Webb sketch of like, are we the baddies? Well,
Yeah.
it's getting to a point where like we're the baddies.
Yeah.
We are supporting the Kremlin and Putin and his cruelty above a people who are simply trying to defend themselves. And at what point does it get too much for the American population to be like, "Hey, you're not on the side of you're on Putin's side,"
Yeah.
and I find that suspect. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think there's a percentage of the Trump supporters who will. We've always said foreign policy is always something that um, has been something where people are like, well, Americans don't really care about that. If it's not on
Right.
there, if it's not happening internally domestically, we don't really kind of care about that kind of stuff. And then it bites us in the ass. At what point I think this is one of those foreign policy issues where at some point a lot of Americans are going to stop to
Right.
start being like, what are you actually doing here?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at, it might take a little while for them to recognize this, but certainly the rest of us are going, what the fuck is the holdup? But there's an element of this where I feel like they are just like Trump. A lot of his followers have this ego thing where they just can't admit, because once they start, then the floodgates open. And they have to realize again, his two longest running relationships with other men as far as friendships, the only deep friendships he's ever had, Roy Cohn and Jeffrey Epstein. Everybody else is an acquaintance or a business associate or somebody he had a transactional relationship with. But these people he hung out with for long periods of time and partied with, Roy Cohn and Jeffrey Epstein. And it is shocking to me that they'll let that slide. And when you stack that up to his appreciation for Vladimir Putin, it starts to make sense that he likes, power. He likes power. He likes however you come by it, whether it's by force or by manipulation. He's impressed by it, and he isn't capable of doing it himself. So he wants to be around it or tangentially have that power or pretend to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got
a problem. We got a real problem, and there's so many things happening domestically.
Right.
But look, I think we have to look at this relationship between him and Putin.
Yeah.
And I know I'm a broken record when I
Russia,
come to this
Russia,
kind of thing.
Russia. Right.
Russia,
Right.
which
Epstein,
is
Epstein, Epstein.
his little meme that he likes to pull out to
Hmm.
diminish the seriousness of his suspect relationship with
Sure.
Putin. At what point does he cross a line?
Yeah.
What is that line? I don't know. He literally just made apologies for mass murder.
Yeah.
They killed dozens of people in Sumy. They're killing people in Kherson, civilians. They're targeting civilians. Kharkiv.
Hmm.
It's At what point do we stop and say there's something wrong here?
Yeah.
This isn't normal. And I know, look, and everybody says that, whether or not it's what he's doing in El Salvador, or take your pick at his policies,
Right.
but it's so blatant. When do we stop and say this is not normal? This is not okay,
Well,
and we
yeah.
can't wait for the midterms.
Well, I think a big portion of this is that I think what we're tracking is how long it takes a big chunk of MAGA to realize that they've been had, and whether and how that impacts the electorate going into the midterms, and or the numbers in polling so much that Trump sits up and takes notice. That is such a crucial part of this whole conversation, and I don't quite think that people have the ability to, like, nobody can really track when it's actually going to happen, but it is happening. We are seeing this pole shift around the tariffs when those businesses start to collapse. And again, it only takes one big thing, and for MAGA to like dump him, and they will. And the thing is, he's doing, because he's so full of hubris this time around, or the people around him think he's going to die of natural causes before he finishes his term, so they're trying to squeeze as many EOs out of him as they possibly can. He's rushing it, and in rushing it, he's making a lot of unforced errors that are going to affect maggots. And those are the ones where they'll either not show up at the voting booth next time. The polls and trends are going to turn on them, and it will either force him to backtrack, which he hates to do, and will be very difficult. I don't know, if he ends up doing it at all, it coincide with other damage he inflicts to draw attention away from it, because that's his other plan. That's the other system he has, is like, if you have to admit you were wrong, or you're being found out to be wrong, he never admits it, but if you're found out to be wrong, start another pile of shit burning over here so everybody forgets about it. And the Epstein files are a great example of that. Like, that redacted bullshit, they made a big play of it, and then everybody in MAGA world got mad, so they just went over here and started the tariff war, essentially, right away, to just draw huge attention away from that. And I don't doubt he'll do that again. We're at the end of the show, and I've got to hop in a car and drive back to Vegas. My afternoon show will be late today, kids, because I'm driving back. So I'll probably be about an hour late, depending on traffic, because I will drive like a sensible person to arrive where I'm going. That said, Phil has a show on Sundays called On the Edge that he does in Kyiv. What's the show this week? Do you have a guest in line, or
this week we have a person who is recording war crimes in occupied Ukraine, gathering stories from people who escaped from the occupied territories, come into Ukrainian territories, and they speak to this organization of which she's a representative,
right?
And tells what it's like to live under Moscow's occupation.
Wow.
In addition to that, I've got an ongoing fundraising event that's going on that is on my social media, where we're trying to fundraise and buy 4x4
ATVs,
kind of ATVs and things like that, and look, we're if the United States under Trump is going to start to withdraw from support from Ukraine, then it's up to individual Americans to start more and more trying to do stuff. So we've got a funding campaign that's going on that I do with a bunch of other podcasters and people who monitor try and fundraise for the event here, and I don't have the link right in front of me.
We'll post it on Saturday for the radio show, and then I'll put it in there. Just send it to me when you get it. I'll let you go.
It's on my socials.
Yeah, great.
It's on my socials.
Yeah. So I will. I'll see you on Saturday. Please be safe. Take care of yourself, and we will see you again very soon. Appreciate it, brother.
Talk to you on Saturday, buddy.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much.
Right, take care.
Off he goes. There he goes. Why am I off center in this? Just why can I not let's try to set this over here and squeeze in like this and put it like that and then go like this. Ta-da. Right. I've got to hit the road because I'm driving back from LA to Vegas. I will be on the air basically as soon as I arrive. So it might be a half hour, might be an hour later than normal today, just as a heads up. But I'm giving myself a window so that I'm not, racing too much. But I will see you guys this afternoon because there are a couple of pieces that I saw yesterday, and I was like, God damn it! I wish I had a show today because I like a couple of these clips. I was like, I need to cover them. So I'll, and again, this may be one of those days where I do clips that I've already seen or seen parts of, so I could show that. I know it's normally outside of my rules, but it's stuff I want to share with you guys because Jesus Christ, these guys are losing it. And it's nice to see. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Love you guys. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Let's see if my, hold on, do my songs working? Like, I have to see if, there's always something. Nope. Okay. So, yeah, I'll just go with this guy. I think actually when I go to my end screen, it should automatically play. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. We don't know. We can't know until we actually do it. Let's see. I'm going to go to here and click this and see if this works. Hey, it worked. What do you know? Excellent. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you this afternoon. Got to run.